Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. We're doing GWV Sunday Round Up for today's second video. So, also on Sunday, we're going to have your eclectic mix of this and that. We'll look at things like solar activity, sea surface temperature anomalies, Eurasian snow cover, Arctic cirrus extent, Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation, and the weather for the next week, 10 days and beyond as well. So sit back, relax, and enjoy on this sunny afternoon. The first video release date was the first summer 2020 analogues update, so it's a bit of a February special that when we're looking at February temperature and precipitation data and to see what effects that might have on this summer. It's also an interesting section in the last sort of 5 minutes or so video looking at La Nina, looking at sea surface temperature anomalies. So have a look at that, and hopefully it's decent watch. That video will be placed on the summer updates page with a written summary this evening. I'll get that up for you this evening, so you'll be able to watch the video on demand and have a read of the written summary whenever you would like. So if you're doing anything else, just going to say happy birthday to us, because GWV.com is 8 years old today. I started the website, registered the domain name, and got in touch with the web host on the 8th of March 2012. So yes, 8 years old for GWV.com today. There are various milestones for GWV. We actually started the original YouTube channel on New Year's Eve 2011 and did our first upload to the original YouTube channel, the Gavin Parks channel, on the 7th of January 2012, and then I developed the website GWV.com on the 8th of March 2012, and then of course we've got the GWV's YouTube channel, which came a bit later. That came on the 1st of March 2014, and we switched over from the Gavin Parks YouTube channel to the GWV's YouTube channel. Essentially, I wanted to create an all-encompassing sort of GWV's brand with website and also with YouTube channel, and it's really since then that the thing has really taken off. The first couple of years I just sort of playing around with GWV's and had a bit of fun with it, but it was really when we created the YouTube channel to go the website that the thing really evolved very, very quickly and rapidly, way beyond anything that I ever expected. And just a big thank you to all of you for watching the videos, getting involved, coming back to the website, reading the written posts, of course. Not just videos at GWV.com, we also have the morning summary. Terry Scholes forecast as well. So there's a lot going on as well at the website. But we do embed the videos to the website too. So yes, big thank you to all of you for watching the videos, for reading the written posts, for liking, for sharing, for subscribing, for getting in touch with us on social media. We have over 10,000 followers on Twitter. Got a very big following on Twitter. So just a huge thank you to all of you. As I say, it grew way beyond anything that I ever expected or anticipated when I started all of this back in 2012. I never dreamed that it would take off as it has done so. So just a huge thank you to all of you on our 8th birthday for GWV.com. Big thank you to all of you for getting involved, and yeah, just a huge thank you to each and every one of you. Right, so let's start GWV's Sunday Roundup, and we're going to begin with sea surface temperature anomalies this week. So this is how sea surface temperature anomalies were looking in the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans on this point, or at this point last week. We did last week's GWV's Sunday Roundup. Got our three areas of interest. Got the ENSO region just here, got the Northern Pacific up there, and we've also got the Northern Atlantic over there. So that's how things were looking at this point last week. Let's have a look at the very latest from NOAA. We'll deal with the ENSO region first of all. Very little change. We're still at ENSO neutral through the equatorial Pacific Ocean. It's warmer over the western side of the equatorial Pacific, and it's cooler in the eastern side of the equatorial Pacific. But generally, we're somewhere around ENSO neutral. Very little change over the past week there. Going further northwards, we can see that the Northern Pacific hasn't really changed a great deal either. That situation last week, this is the situation this week. Possibly the sea surface temperature anomalies here have got a little bit colder in the northern part of the Pacific Ocean off the Pacific coast of America. Conversely, we're a little bit warmer there, and generally just around sort of Alaska and the coast of Canada and northwestern Pacific coast of America, it's quite chilly up there. Sea surface temperature anomalies are bit cold average. We've also got this area of cold average sea surface temperature anomalies to the south of the equatorial Pacific Ocean through the southern Pacific Ocean as well. Generally, the Pacific is a little bit colder at the moment than it has been for a while. And that's a continuation of a trend that we've been seeing for the past few weeks. This could be the precursor to a La Nina, but it's a little bit too early to say. As I say, we've got quite an interesting section about this at the end of today's first summer update, where we look at sea surface temperature anomalies from this point in 2007, when we was already well on our way to La Nina at this point in 2007, but also from 1988, where we had a big La Nina for the summer 1988. But at this point, in March 1988, actually there was very little sign of La Nina. So this time of the year in March, sometimes you can have the ENSO pattern bedding in, but you can have the rest of the year. But other times, actually, March could be one of those months where really it doesn't tell you a great deal about what's going to happen further down the line. Anyway, have a look at the first summer updates in the last 5 to 10 minutes of the video. I think that's it's quite an interesting little section. Over in the North Atlantic, we've got a very warm tropical Atlantic developing, so warm sea surface temperature anomalies off the coast of Africa there. Through the tropical Atlantic, that's been the situation over the past few weeks as well. Cold up in the Northern Atlantic, the cold blob is back in business. I say the AMO, Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation, is moving into its colder phase, and that's the reason we keep seeing this repeated area of colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies up here. That will develop further over the next few years. Through the 2020s, we're going to see this developing further. The Atlantic will become increasingly cold during the next 10 years or so, probably reaching the peak of the cold AMO. I would have thought sometime around 2030 probably. So, again, very little change from last week to this week in the North Atlantic. The only difference is that it's perhaps got a little bit warmer just here around the Azores. I suppose that's probably connected to what's happening further south of the coast of Africa. But otherwise, the oceans are relatively stable at the moment. The SOI is looking like this. It's the Southern Oscillation Index. It's an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state in the Southern Pacific Ocean. When the SOI is negative, then the atmosphere is going to be reflective of an El Nino. When the SOI is positive, the atmosphere will be reflective of La Nina. This is from Queensland Government, which I think is part of the Bureau of Meteorology. So essentially, we're still, as we were, we're trading negative and positive numbers. So the latter part of, or in the latter part of February, 26th, 27th of February, we have plus 16 and plus 15, respectively, for the SOI. That's atmospheric setup. That's reflective of La Nina. A couple of days later, though, by the 29th of February and the 1st of March, we're down to minus 16 and minus 17. That's an atmospheric state that's reflective of El Nino. Coming back to more recent days, this is how we're looking. So the 4th of March, for example, is quite La Nina-esque at 7.99, but the 7th of March is quite El Nino-esque at 5.70. So it's very much what you expect at ENSO neutral. We're trading days where some days we're reflective of an El Nino type atmospheric state, and other days were reflective of a La Nina atmospheric state. It all cancels each other out, and we finish up at ENSO neutral, and that's exactly where we have been through much of this winter, albeit we've been on the warm side of ENSO neutral. But essentially this is classic ENSO neutral type condition, with neither El Nino or La Nina type state able to get a foothold. And you can see from the red line here, which is the 30-day SOI average, that again we're a bit up and down. So we did go quite negative around the middle of March with the SOI, went close to -4, but generally we're back up here now. Just just very close to ENSO neutral, so very little change really in terms of what's happening in the ENSO region at the moment. This is how Eurasian snow cover and Arctic sea ice extent are looking. So again, been a really bad winter for snow cover across much of Europe. We know that, and it's gone on into the early part of March as well. We have got some snow cover in the usual expected areas around the Alps, for example. There's quite a bit of snow there. Over towards the Pyrenees, there's some snow, and across the very far north of Scandinavia, plenty of snow up there, although southern parts of Sweden have had a really bad winter, as has parts of Finland as well for snow cover. All the areas where you'd expect to have snow in early March across eastern parts of Europe still looking snow free, and the snow line has actually started to recede from the west of Russia as well, which is very unusual for that to happen so early. In fact, I think we probably will see the snow line pushing back to the far west of Russia in the next week or two. But at the moment, snow cover, the snow line is receding back from the far west of Russia. Plenty of Arctic sea ice, though, you'll notice. Lots of yellow up here. And especially like south of Greenland, and also just here, quite a bit of snow, quite a bit of ice there. Just indicative of the fact that we have had a cold Arctic winter, as the polar vortex has kept the cold air generally bottled up in the Arctic, while the mid-latitudes have had a very mild westerly zonal type winter. This is showing Arctic sea ice extent. It's from the National Snow and Ice Data Centre, which of course is part of NOAA. This also just here is from part of NOAA. This is from the National Ice Data Centre as well. So we can see that once again the blue line here is where we are with Arctic sea ice extent for 2020. We're just there. How that compares with the averages. So we've got the 2011 to 2019 average just there. So we continue to be above that. We're above our sort of most recent 10-year average, 2011 to 2019. That's this blue line just here. So we continue to be above that. We've been trending above that really since the middle of January. So yes, we are doing better than our most recent 10-year average for Arctic sea ice extent. We're back on parity really with the 2001 to 2010 average, or more or less we've reached parity with it. We did drop a little bit under the 2001 to 2010 average last week, but we've ticked back up to be very close to the 2001 to 2010 Arctic sea ice extent average. Of course, we continue to be lagging behind the older averages, 1991 to 2000. That's the green line just there. So we're quite a bit under that. Let's get rid of 2001 to 2010. You can see we are quite a bit under the 1991 to 2000 average, and we're even further under that orange line, which is 1979 to 1990 average. So again, it's as has been over the past few weeks, I've been saying, we have seen a modest recovery in Arctic sea ice extent through this very cold Arctic winter. We are above, we're doing better than our most recent 10-year average, so that's good news. We're more or less on parity with the previous 10-year average, which is 2001 to 2010. So we're on parity with that average. And of course, because we've had so many years of drastic melting in the Arctic during the summer season, we are well behind 1991 to 2000, 1979 to 1990. What this doesn't tell us is how thick the ice is, of course. So we are having a bit of a recovery in Arctic sea ice extent through this winter, but whether it lasts through the melt season during this summer remains to be seen. But we have to take any good news when we can get it, and I think this is a little bit of good news for anybody concerned about what's happening with Arctic sea ice. It is a little bit of good news what's happened this winter. Right, moving on to solar activity. So this is how the solar disk is looking on our side of this today from soham.net. We have a spotless solar disk. There's no sunspots. Again, we have now had a month of spotless conditions on the solar disk. So it tells us that the deep solar minimum that we've been in really for the past year or so is continuing. We're at very, very deep solar minimum at the moment. There is a little bit of an active region. You can't see it on this image, but there is a little bit of an active region being reported by Solar Ham in the southeastern limb. So we may get some sunspots. We may get a sunspot in the next few days somewhere, I think, in this sort of area. And that sunspot, if it does occur, or those sunspots, if they occur, will belong to solar cycle number 25. So that's something to watch out for in the next few days. But having said that, solar activity is, of course, at very low levels, because there's no sunspots at the moment. And even with what happens in that southeastern quadrant over the next few days, solar activity is expected to remain at very low levels. This is the GWV Solar Activity Tracker. It's been sent through by our good friend James Ackroyd. James has had his operation and he's out of hospital. He's doing well with his recovery. So he felt well enough to get this sent to us a couple of days ago. So a big thank you to James for sending this through to us. We've all been thinking of you, James, and we're all really, really pleased to know that your recovery is proceeding. I think it's quite a slow old job, but James's recovery is proceeding quite nicely. So get well soon, James, and of course we're all thinking of you and sending you our best wishes. Right, so this is how things are. We've got our three trend lines here, or excuse me, we've got our two trend lines and our one line that is depicting each individual day's worth of sunspot activity. So the orange line depicts each individual day's worth of sunspot activity, and then the thick green and thick red lines are our trend lines. So you can see that since here, which is kind of like the beginning part of February, we haven't had any sunspots. The orange line just flatlining away on the floor of the chart. So we have had a month now, over a month, of completely spotless condition on the solar disk. That has allowed these thick green and thick red lines, which are the trend lines, remember, that's allowed them to tick downwards. So they're also now flatlining on the floor of the chart. So it basically tells us that there's very, very little going on the solar disk at the moment. This is true classic sort of deep solar minimum type stuff, where there's very, very little happening. So we remain at solar minimum, and we're expecting to continue to be at solar minimum for the next few weeks, at least, probably for the next few months. I would think we'll move into solar cycle 25 officially, perhaps around the summer, but again, it's always very difficult to know when you have ended one solar cycle and started another, because there's always an overlap. At some point, we'll get a notification from NASA to tell us that we have officially began solar cycle number 25, but at the moment, we remain in deep solar minimum for solar cycle number 24. Big thank you, James, for sending that through to us. And, of course, we're wishing James all the best for his continued recovery. This is also from our good friend Richard Trott. This is showing spotless days by year and also the current stretch. So for 2020, we have so far, still quite early in the year, of course, so far we've had 51 days without any sunspots. That is 76% of the year so far have not had any sunspots. Very close to 2019, which had 281 days without sunspots. That was 77% of the year. Of course, in the second half of this year, as we move into solar cycle 25, we may find solar activity beginning to tick up a little bit. So I would anticipate by the time we get through to the end of the year, we will probably see 2020's percentage a little bit lower than 2019. Could be wrong on that, but I think it'll be a little bit lower than the 77% of spotless days that we had in 2019. Nevertheless, there won't be a great deal in it, though, I wouldn't have thought. And 2020 is going to be a very, very sort of inactive year for solar activity, as was 2019 as well. Big thank you to Richard for sending that one through. Big thank you to James for sending the solar tracker through. And then we move on to the QBO. So this is how the quasi-biennial oscillation is currently shaping up. Remember, the QBO is an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state. This time, it's looking at the strength of the zonal westerlies, essentially. It's cyclical, so it goes through its westerly and easterly phases in sort of 12 to 15 month block of phases, and it should be very consistent. It should almost be like a pulse where it goes from westerly to easterly and then back to westerly and back to easterly, and so on. Occasionally it can go right. It did do a few years ago. We had a failure of the easterly QBO, but generally the QBO is something that is very, very consistent. When you're in a westerly QBO, you strengthen the zonal westerlies. When you're in an easterly QBO, you weaken the zonal westerlies. So this is particularly important for winter forecasting, as an easterly QBO can sometimes coincide with an increased chance of a cold winter. For example, we're at the section on this table from NOAA of 1962-1963, and you will notice that an easterly QBO took off during the middle part of 1962 and then strengthened to the end of the year, and so 1963, the first half of 1963 anyway, had a very strong easterly QBO, and of course that coincides with the coldest winter since 1740. Now the only thing with that is that not every winter that's an easterly QBO is a cold winter. If it was, then we would be having cold winters on average every couple of winters or so. So a lot of easterly QBO winters are mild winters for us, and also a lot of westerly QBO, or some westerly QBO winters, which favour mild, can actually be cold. So as ever for UK weather and Northern European weather, because of our place in the world, there is never one consistent sort of signal. You have to take a multifaceted approach to seasonal forecasting in our part of the world, as there are so many conflicting drivers. Well, that brings us down to the current year, 2020, just there. So we're beginning to go into an easterly QBO. It's a slow old process to get it going. We started 2019 with a westerly QBO, which strengthened into the middle part of 2019 and then weakened in the second half of 2019. We've been sort of flirting with going into an easterly QBO really since December. And we have had a couple of negative numbers. So for January we came out at minus 2.51, and for February we actually came out minus 3.20. So we're sort of in a very, very weak easterly QBO type pattern, but 2 weeks have any sort of impact really on the troposphere at the moment. We will see, I think, this easterly QBO strengthening though through the spring and into the summer. Next winter, 2020-2021, should be a strong and mature easterly QBO winter, so that will be quite interesting. Next winter could be very different to the winter just gone, and of course I'll say no more about that at the moment. This is from NASA, so this is showing the west and easterly QBO phases. So where we've got this green and blue area just here, that's the easterly QBO. Where we've got this sandy coloured area, that's the past westerly QBO. We've got the levels of the atmosphere just here, so that's like 10 HPA right at the top of the stratosphere, and this of course is going to be down on the surface. It's 30 to 50 HPA that we're interested in, because that's like the bottom of the stratosphere and going into the troposphere. So we've got to push the easterly QBO to properly get into easterly QBO. We've got to push it down into the troposphere. That's proved a little bit difficult so far with this easterly QBO. You'll notice just here, this is the last time we transitioned from a west to east QBO. It happened during the early and middle part of 2017. You'll notice how we have this very nice curve downwards with these blue and green colours as the easterly QBO descends very easily from the stratosphere into the troposphere, reaching 30 HPA in the summer of 2017. That was a very nice sort of transition into an easterly QBO, very smooth transition into an easterly QBO. But if we come over here, we can see what's happening. So we've got the easterly QBO here within the stratospheric level of the atmosphere. But again, not those blue and green colours not pushing down nicely and easily into the 30 HPA level, as we see just here. Instead, we just keep these raggedy, sort of browny coloured areas going through that area, which tells us we haven't properly yet moved into the easterly QBO. this ECQBO is too far gone to fail, so we're not going to get a failure of the easterly QBO. I'd be very surprised if we had a failure of the easterly QBO. Some point we will see these green and blue curves pushing definitively into the troposphere and properly going into the easterly phase of the QBO. Just taking a while to do it. Apparently, it can be often the case that a transition into an easterly QBO is harder than a transition into a westerly QBO, but on the other side, the easterly QBO lasts longer on average than the westerly QBO. I think at some point through this spring we're going to see this ECQBO properly powering up, and then it'll carry us on through the rest of the year. We've got the Arctic oscillation number in for the February as well from NOAA. So if we scroll down here, this is showing each individual month's worth of Arctic oscillation numbers. So for example, when we've got these negative numbers, the Arctic oscillation is negative on a monthly basis. When we've got positive numbers, the AO has been positive on a monthly basis. And when it's somewhere around here, so 0.098, that would be like neutral type month for the Arctic oscillation. Had a very, very positive AO through this winter, of course. December wasn't overly positive, but certainly January was very, very positive with the AO, and February went even more positive with a number of plus 0.417. And this only goes back to 1950, so I haven't got a huge amount of years to go up, but certainly back to 1950, for the month of February, I can't find a year that's as positive as this. The two most positive AO years before February 2020 were in 1989 and 1990. February 1989 had plus 3.279. And 1990 had plus 3.402. But I think February 2020 actually beats those it just beats 1990. So back to 1950, this is the most positive AO February that we've had. And again, it just tells us that we had a really strong polar vortex, and that's the reason we've strengthened the westerlies, and we've driven in so many areas of low pressure, and of course kept it very mild as well through this winter. So this is how the Arctic oscillation observed and forecast chart is looking, and the positive AO phase goes on. So the black line, of course, shows where we've been with the Arctic oscillation. Red lines at the end where GFS ensembles are forecast the Arctic oscillation to go. Remember, it's just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state, not driving anything in its own terms. It just tells us what the atmosphere is doing. When the AO is positive, you've got deep low pressure up over the pole, and you will strengthen the zone of westerlies and keep cold air bottled in over the Arctic and North Pole, of course, which we explained earlier in the video. When the AO is in its negative phase, you have high pressure over pole, you have blocking, that will push cold air out of pole and down into mid latitudes. Where we are right now, so of course have this really positive AO through February. We can see that from the black line spiking up there. That's how we've achieved the most positive AO February on record, I believe. And where we are right now is still positive with the Arctic oscillation, not as positive as it was earlier in February, but nevertheless we're still positive with the AO. We've got another one of these spikes to come in the next week, so the AO is going to go even more positive again. Then it drops down, but generally up to the second half of March, the Arctic oscillation is remaining in its positive phase. So this has been a very, very prolonged positive AO period. At some point before too much longer, this normally runs in blocks of around 2 to 3 months. We've gone beyond that, and we're going to carry on going beyond that through March by looking at some point. We're going to see the AO going negative. When it does so, it may stay negative for a little while. If we was to happen to coincide that with summer, the flip into a negative AO and northern blocking, then that could be a little bit concerning for the summer, of course. NAO looks like this. So again, black line shows where we've been with the North Atlantic oscillation. Red lines at the end where GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to go. We haven't got February's NAO number in yet. That always comes in a little bit later than the AO number. I'm not sure why that will be the case. Remember, we're only measuring air pressure again. It's not driving anything in its own terms. It's just measuring the air pressures between Iceland and the Azores. When the NAO is positive, you have low pressure on Iceland, high pressure through the Azores. That will strengthen the zone of westerlies, particularly if it's combined with a positive AO, as this winter has been. Conversely, though, when the NAO is negative, have high pressure around Iceland and low pressure through the Azores. That can be a colder signal, can allow northerly and easterly winds, particularly if it's combined with a negative AO. So at the moment, the NAO continues to be in its positive phase. It's been positive really through the winter, with one or two daily exceptions. And the next couple of weeks, GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to stay positive as well. So it's all telling us that up to the middle of March, the westerlies go on. Right, let's do some forecasting. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. So the red line is 30-year upper air temperature average for London town. A bit cooler average at the moment, but we are going to get a push up in temperatures through the early part of this week. Tuesday, you can actually see the temperature going up to around 16, maybe 17 degrees somewhere in the southeast corner. So a proper taste of spring for the southeast and southern England, just for a couple of days, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the temperature drops away through the second half of the week, becomes quite cold again, and then really through the middle part of March into the second half of the month, it looks like we're keeping the upper air temperatures largely on the colder than average side. But there are a few milder outliers as well, so it's not completely clear-cut signal, but it looks like a little bit on the cool side really within the GFS ensembles, or perhaps a little bit cold actually, going into the second half of March. Precipitation-wise, we keep it unsettled. Looks like the deluge has ended. I don't think we'll be getting flooding rains for the time being, but it certainly looks as though up to the middle of March anyway, we are keeping things pretty unsettled. There may be a little bit of a drying trend though as we go into the second half of the month, although that is of course extended rain stuff. Temperature anomalies from the 8th to the 16th of March, a little bit above average for England and Wales, a little bit below average for Scotland and Northern Ireland. That does, of course, encompass a couple of very mild days that we're going to get on Tuesday and Wednesday. Precipitation anomalies wetter than average for central and northern parts of the country, near north and further south. Still looks rather unsettled, I have to say, in the week ahead from the 8th to the 16th of March. That's how the GFS midnight run was looking for Wednesday. So on Wednesday, we're bringing in a westerly, still quite mild down in the south, cooler up in the north, and then into the second half of the week we start to pull winds into the northwest, so it does turn colder and it will be rather showery in the second half of the week as well. Over the weekend, looking quite unsettled. Another low pressure's coming in there midnight on Sunday. That's bringing wet and windy weather with it. As that low clears away into Denmark, we find the wind turning into the north there on Monday the 16th of March. That's a bit of a cold snap with a northerly wind, and then high pressure starts to make its move. High pressure begins to pounce and pushes northwards into the UK and tries to get itself up to Scandinavia. So by the time you get through to day 10, which is Wednesday the 18th of March, bit of a pattern change taking place. We find ourselves going under an area, not just a ridge, but an area of high pressure, and then that high pressure moves itself up to Scandinavia by Thursday the 19th of March and turns the winds into the east. So we go drier and colder into the second half of March with easterly winds beginning to set in. And of course the main thing is that we're drying out under that area of high pressure, and then that high pressure stays in control with a midnight GFS run right up to the very end. Actually, as far as we go is to Tuesday 24th of March under high pressure, centered over Scandinavia. Winds are coming in from the east. I'm not sure it's particularly cold easterly there, but it will certainly be chilly, and it'll probably drag in a lot of cloud with it. But the most important factor is that finally we're under a protracted period of high pressure, and at last we begin to go drier. As we've been discussing this video, the 6 o'clock GFS run has been trickling out. So again, we're starting on Wednesday, looking rather showery, mild in the south on Wednesday, cooler in the north. Into next weekend, low pressure comes in off the Atlantic, keeping things unsettled up to the middle of March. This is Sunday the 15th of March, a week away. Low pressure is moving in off the Atlantic. That low pressure then dives into the continent as we go through to Monday the 16th. We're going up the ridge building on its backside, and we're turning wind into the northeast. So it starts to turn much colder with the 6 o'clock GFS run. These are the upper air temperatures for Monday the 16th of March. We're actually pulling in a puddle of minus 10 Celsius at 850 HPA type air. That's the minus 10 Celsius isotherm air pushing through the country. Certainly cold enough for any showers that were to fall or were to be blown in with that northeast. It's certainly cold enough for them to be falling as snow. Then we move up towards day 10, and the high pressure is centred over Scandinavia. The wind is in from the east, so GWV has been quite consistent about this Scandinavian high idea into the second half of March. Upper air temperature still looking quite cold. We have got quite a deep cold pool sitting over Western Russia and Scandinavia. We haven't seen much of that during this winter, but pretty deep cold pools there to our northeast. Beyond that, we actually start to turn wind into the east and pull in some of those cold upper air temperatures. That's the upper air temperature for Friday the 20th of March, for example. We're way beyond day 10 now. We're in the unreliable time frame, but certainly quite a extensive cold pool sitting to our east. So if this is right, we could be starting to move towards a colder phase for this winter. If we go beyond that, have a look at the upper air temperatures for this spring, I should say, colder phase this spring. Have a look at the upper air temperatures for Saturday 21st of March. Again, they're certainly looking cold enough for snow if there was any showers in with those easterly winds. And then as we get towards the very end of the 6 o'clock GFS run, that's how we look. High pressure still in control. So the main storyline, I think, as we're moving into the second half of March, of course we will focus on this in the coming videos in the next few days. The main storyline will be the high pressure and drying out. But the sort of subplot will be whether we can pull in some proper cold air from the east. We haven't had any during this winter. Maybe that the second half of March, not sure many people will want it in the second half of March, but it could be that the second half of March will actually pull in some cold easterlies. So we shall see. GM looks like that, so unsettled for Wednesday, mild in the south, quite cold in the north. Into next weekend, the low pressure keeps coming, and not much sign of a Scandinavian high actually up to day 10 with the GM. Actually, it's raising the heights from the south, so it is drying us out by day 10, Wednesday 18th of March, but it's much milder. Winds are coming in from west-southwest direction, certainly no easterlies doing there. And then we've got the ECMWF that again has us quite showery for middle of week, very mild in the south, colder in the north. Next weekend looks unsettled, low pressure again continuing to push through. That's Monday the 16th of March. The low pressure then clears away to the east, winds turning to the north, so we get a cold snap from the north, but not getting the high pressure as far north as the GFS is doing. So by day 10, Wednesday 18th of March, we are under high pressure. So the main story is the high pressure and drying things out into the second half of the month. But we're not taking high pressure as far north. We're not getting it to Scandinavia. Consequently, we're not pulling in the cold air from the east. So that will all be things that we'll be focusing on, I think, in the videos during the next few days. The high pressure, whether it dries out, and of course, whether we pull in any cold air from the east. These options are on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10, which is the 18th of March. 18 members of the ECM ensembles with high pressure to our south, low pressure to our northwest. Mild with these, bringing winds in from the southwest and turning drier in the south. 17 have high pressure taking over. We're under an area of high pressure there, including the ECM control and operational run. Of course, that's going to be a much drier scenario. And then we've got 16 that have a high pressure up to Scandinavia. They're bringing easterlies. So those 16 are in line with what the GFS operational, midnight operational and 6 o'clock operational run is doing. They're bringing cold easterly winds. That's a minority option, though. But between the 16 there and the 17 there, and probably the 18 here, it does look as though by day 10 we are trending towards high pressure. It's going to be the exact position of the ridge that's critical. These are the options we've got for 2 weeks' time, which is the 23rd of March. 12 members of the ECM ensembles have a Scandinavian high, and they're probably bringing in a cold easterly wind. 11 have the high pressure centre more or less over top of the country. That's going to be dry and probably quite spring-like. 9 are still unsettled, or 9 are unsettled with low pressure still in business. That low pressure still driving in wet weather from off the Atlantic. 8 down here have the ridge over top of the country. 7 have the high pressure centred somewhere around Denmark. Just a gentle easterly coming in with those. And 4 with the high pressure out to the west. Other than the 9 that we've got here, which are genuinely unsettled, it looks as though most members of the ECM ensembles have us dominated by high pressure in 2 weeks' time, which is a big change on what we've had through the past few months. So finally, it looks as though evidence is building that we're going into high pressure conditions for the second half of March. The only question is where that ridge is going to sit. CFSV2 looks like this. These are 500 millibar heights broken down to week periods. The first week period takes from 8th to 14th of March. Coming week is still quite unsettled. Low pressure up to the north, high pressure strengthening to our south. So still quite unsettled for the week ahead, really. But by week 2, we're under high pressure. This is the 15th to the 21st of March. High pressure is dominating the weather, low pressure and the jet stream being pushed northwards, so that obviously is turning us quite a lot drier. Week 3 is also dominated by high pressure. It's 22nd, 28th of March, a ridge from the Atlantic into west of Europe and then into northern Europe as well. Low pressure up here, jet stream pushed northwards, high pressure is in control, we're high and dry. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 29th of March to the 4th of April, and then high pressure is centred just off the east coast of Scotland, more or less over the top of the country. So it doesn't get drier than that. The high pressure is in and it's sticking around for 2 or 3 weeks if the CFSV2 is correct. And then finally, this is how the CFS is forecasting April. So for April, 700 millibar height anomaly, still low pressure up to our north around Greenland, Iceland, where it's been all winter. But the ridge from the Azores extending into the UK and much of northern Europe looks like it should be an anticyclonic April, if that's right. Winds are light south-southwesterly, so mild, yes. Temperature being forecast to be above average for April. No real signal for precipitation, but I would have thought, particularly for England and Wales, we're likely to have a relatively dry month. So it could be that quite a significant pattern change is going to get underway just into the second half of March, and that will take us into proper spring weather, and that could last until we get into April as well. Of course, we have to watch out for the chance of cold easterlies, though, as that high pressure builds in, if it gets itself to Scandinavia. Finally, if you're enjoying the videos at the moment, please can you consider becoming a patron for Gaz Weather Vids and help us to pay for the website. So this really takes us back to where we started at the beginning of the video. It's our 8th birthday, and big thank you to all of us, big thank you to all of you for getting involved with the website, and a special thank you to patrons and to donors for Gaz Weather Vids, helping us to pay for GazWeatherVids.com, keep the content online. If you would like to become a patron and join our 62 patrons, then all you need to do is come to GazWeatherVids' Patreon page and sign up for a Patreon account, assuming you don't already have one, and then give an ongoing monthly donation to GazWeatherVids. It can be anything from $1 a month upwards. You will pull in with the other patrons, and that's absolutely great. Big thank you to all of our patrons. Alternatively, you can become a donor through PayPal for GazWeatherVids. So this is really simple. You just come to GazWeatherVids' PayPal page. You sign into your PayPal account and then give whatever donation you want to Gaz Weathervids via PayPal. And by doing that, you are helping us to pay for the website, GazWeatherVids.com, and you're helping us to keep the content online. And you're going to get a mention in videos as long as you want one. You can rather stay anonymous, that's absolutely fine. Just let us know when you make your donation, but otherwise we'll give you a shout out. Say thank you very much for doing that. Right, extended Sunday Roundup today. Hope you found it interesting and informative. Don't forget to give us a like on the video and let us know in the comments what you thought. And of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Use the bell notification icon thing. And if you do that, you won't be unceremoniously unsubscribed by YouTube, as a few people can be when they subscribe to channels, and you'll be notified when we upload the content that you want to see and hopefully are enjoying. Right, that's it for videos. We'll have the written version of the first summer update up for you this evening, and that's it for now though. Thanks for watching.